The evening sky was plagued by a curtain of clouds that rolled in from the east. Kenneth knew that outrunning nature was not an option today, especially in the condition of his worn F-150. Without sparing a glance at the slumped woman in his passenger seat, Kenneth turned on the radio. The vehicle was soon filled with static, but the wearied man turned the dial steadily until he found the channel with the ever-repeating EAS message. The message was an alert to the country about unidentified organic life forms that had ravaged and were likely still ravaging many states and major cities. These strange life forms made poor imitations of known animals due to their bacterial cell composition. Authorities had stressed the importance of avoiding any contact with these animals, as a single wound could inflict fatal infections. The message concluded with a list of evacuation sites in the local area. The closest site to escape the nightmare was in Atlanta, Georgia. The mere thought of the city caused Kenneth's heart to feel like it had been replaced with a rusty slab of lead. Atlanta had some of Richie's favorite hobby stores. Kenneth used to take his son there to celebrate special occasions, topping off a great day with a new airplane model or some of the best mac and cheese Richie had ever tasted. Suddenly, Olivia jolted awake, nearly causing Kenneth to veer off the abandoned road. The woman adjusted her bleached hair into a bun with almost no effort, and it showed. Kenneth fixed his eyes on the cracked road ahead, littered with potholes. He felt Olivia's gaze over his right shoulder but refused to acknowledge it. Olivia's gentle voice cut through the static of the emergency alert system radio message. "How are you feeling?" Kenneth turned the volume down on the radio before responding. "You mean how am I doing?" "I'm fine," Olivia persisted. "You know what I mean. I'm just looking out for you." Kenneth felt his primal instincts flare up, resisting anyone who dared to intrude on his innermost thoughts and emotions. Despite being aware of Olivia's good intentions, he viewed her concern as an unwelcome pest, attempting to pry into his mind. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and spotted a small structure in the distance. "I appreciate your concern, Liv, but not now," Kenneth said firmly, meeting Olivia's soft gaze with his own. "There's a chapel up ahead. Let's take a rest for today," he continued. The truck slowly made its way towards the off-white chapel, causing a storm of dust and gravel. Kenneth parked the vehicle a few feet from the building, and Olivia leaned forward to examine the rundown structure and the kudzu vines that almost swallowed it. "How much further until Atlanta?" Olivia asked, still keeping an eye out for any signs of movement. "Not too far. I don't want to continue driving in this rain," Kenneth replied, pointing towards the storm clouds brewing in the distance. Olivia turned to see the clouds churning into ebony masses of lightning, triggering her anxiety. She felt her chest tighten, overwhelmed by the sight of the approaching storm. Kenneth and Olivia stepped out of the truck, hoisting their backpacks over their shoulders in unison. They were greeted by the humid winds of the marsh flatlands that had become a familiar sight since they had left their previous location. The two friends explored the petite chapel, using their flashlights sparingly. To their surprise, the chapel had remained untouched by humans or creatures, save for a few broken doors here and there, which Kenneth assumed were the work of raiders who left empty-handed. Olivia positioned herself in the front row of the chapel and arranged her backpack as a makeshift pillow, the sound of every movement magnified in the silent space. Ken kept his flashlight on and placed it upright on the ground next to him as he settled down beside her. "I don't want to be alone in the dark," Ken confided in Olivia, preempting any potential remarks about saving battery life. Olivia sat up straight, ready to offer her support. "You're not alone," she reassured him. But Ken felt completely isolated. In his eyes, losing Richie was a sign that his own life had ended and he was trapped in limbo. Rage and sorrow consumed him, and suppressing his emotions was taking a toll on his mental and physical well-being. He collapsed beside Olivia, turning off the flashlight to conceal the anguish etched on his face. "I have to go back," Ken declared abruptly, causing Olivia to startle. "Where?" she asked, worried about what he was planning. "The gas station, the warehouse, wherever that bastard is hiding," Ken replied, his voice laced with an unsettling intensity. Olivia hesitated before responding, choosing her words carefully. "Ken, I can't imagine what you're going through, but I really don't think— I'm not asking for permission, Liv. I need to kill that thing. I can't continue like this," Ken interrupted her, his desperation palpable. Olivia's frustration boiled over. "We barely made it out alive, and now you want to confront it? We're lucky it gave up chasing us." "You don't understand, and I don't expect you to," Ken replied coldly, his emotional detachment in stark contrast to Olivia's. The loss of his son at the hands of a monstrous entity had triggered a primal rage and anxiety in Ken that he couldn't ignore. He paused to gather his thoughts, realizing that it wasn't just any child he had lost, it was his only son. Determination took hold of him as he rose from the pews and grabbed his backpack. His mind was made up. Nothing could sway him from his course of action. "Are you crazy, Ken? You're going straight into the storm?" Olivia exclaimed, taken aback by Ken's resolute answer. "Yes," Ken replied without hesitation, surprising Olivia with his unwavering determination. "You can't just leave me here!" Olivia's voice shook with uncertainty as she tried to reason with Ken. "Just wait for me. I'll come back for you," Ken assured her, his voice filled with conviction. The incessant rain beat against the windshield, obscuring Ken's view of the road ahead. The marshlands on either side of the asphalt were submerged, creating a slick sheen that Ken couldn't escape from. As he approached the cattail fields, his heart raced with a mixture of adrenaline and regret. The beast that had taken his son was a primal force that man was not meant to confront. Ken questioned his impulsive decision to return to the creature's territory. Suddenly, Ken spotted two structures emerging from the storm. To his right, a deserted gas station with a fading neon sign of scarlet and gold still flickered in the distance, defying the ravages of time. To his left, an unfinished behemoth warehouse loomed, neglected long before the country was plunged into a state of emergency. Ken's truck pulled up to one of the gas pumps, and he switched off the engine. The only sound was the relentless rain pelting the roof of the truck. The bursts of lightning illuminated the dark sky, followed by deafening thunder. Ken was transfixed, staring at the unfinished warehouse across the street, encircled by a moat of cattails. He wondered if his son's body still lay inside, or if the beast had devoured it completely. A surge of rage filled Ken's heart, propelling him out of the truck and towards the warehouse, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. In the face of the raging storm, Ken braved the elements and ventured into the back of his truck in search of a spool of barbed wire. The warehouse loomed ominously in the distance, its watchful gaze following his every move. Ken couldn't help but feel a creeping sense of unease as he performed his tasks, constantly checking over his shoulder for any sign of movement from the beastly creature lurking within. Despite his physical strength, Ken knew that brute force alone wouldn't be enough to take down the animal. He needed to be smart, to outwit the beast with cunning and ingenuity. With this in mind, Ken set to work fashioning tripwires out of the barbed wire he had retrieved from his truck, carefully positioning them to protect the entrances to the gas station. He then proceeded to douse the perimeter of the building in gasoline, hoping that the rain wouldn't spoil his plan. With all his preparations complete, Ken took a deep breath and set his sights on the warehouse. As he walked further away from the gas station, his confidence began to waver, and he felt a sense of detachment from his own body. But Ken refused to let his emotions get the best of him, pushing forward with determination and purpose. The conflicting desires to survive and seek vengeance battled within him, but Ken remained steadfast in his resolve, determined to see his mission through to the end. As Ken ventured through the flooded wetlands, he was struck by their newfound depth, far deeper than he had remembered. The cattails that surrounded him seemed to loom overhead, their presence shrouding the environment in mystery. Every step Ken took became a trudge as water poured into his rain boots, weighing him down. Despite the difficult terrain, he was determined to reach his destination, the warehouse. As he continued on, Ken soon found himself in complete darkness, with visibility reduced to nothing but the towering rooftop emerging from the forest of cattails. It was clear that the warehouse was close, but getting there would not be easy. Meanwhile, the creature that Olivia and Richie had encountered seemed to be drawn to light. Each time they activated their flashlights, the beast found them without fail. Ken attempted to deter the creature by creating loud noises using metal objects, but to no avail. It seemed that the beast was hard of hearing. Approaching one of the many entrances to the warehouse, Ken hesitated. He knew that stepping inside could be dangerous, but he had no other choice. Without a second thought, he turned on his flashlight and aimed it into the building. The sight that met him was overwhelming. The warehouse was completely flooded, with wooden debris littering the water and clashing together in the darkness. Ken's heart pounded in his chest so fiercely that it felt as though it might lift out of his body. As soon as Ken flicked on his flashlight, the sound of splashing water ricocheted off the walls of the warehouse. He felt his heart pounding against his fingertips, lips, and feet as he crept forward, scanning the building's interior. Suddenly, a guttural croak interrupted the stillness, followed by several high-pitched cries that resembled an animal in agony. Ken's eyes darted around the space until he spotted a massive mass of coarse fur lurking beneath a metal staircase, leaping through the waters. Ken hesitated, gripping his flashlight tighter before turning to run through the wetlands. The predator charged through the floating debris, its wheezing and crying inflicting a kind of fear that made Ken's skin crawl. He knew he couldn't outrun it, especially not in the dense cattails. So he killed his flashlight and kept running toward the neon-lit gas station, the beast hot on his heels. As he ran, Ken couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up his spine, fueled by the predator's inhuman sounds. It was as though the cries of a maimed animal were melding with those of a person in distress, creating an eerie hybrid of terror. Finally, Ken's feet hit the asphalt of the road, and he scrambled up, relieved to leave the swampy cattails behind. He foolishly paused and glanced back, trying to gauge the distance between himself and the predator. But the cattails acted as a living veil, obscuring his view of the darkness. With a sudden cacophony of growls, the predator charged through the cattails and onto the road, its sickly anatomy illuminated by the vibrant neon lights. Ken's heart raced as he realized he was still within the beast's reach, and he pushed himself to run even faster, desperate to escape the creature's clutches. The monstrous creature that stood before Ken was a grotesque perversion of a boar, with a snout that resembled a sinuous mass of flesh and teeth, bursting open like a blossoming flower of death. Its hind legs were little more than exposed bone and muscle, with hooves that lacked any semblance of skin, while its front legs were like the paws of a wild bear, dripping with a mixture of rain and blood that made it impossible for Ken to discern which was which. Without warning, the beast charged at Ken, its outstretched claw poised to strike. Ken sprinted towards the back of his truck with all the speed he could muster, his tired muscles burning with effort. The predator collided headfirst onto the hood of the truck, causing it to shake violently and knocking Ken back against the gas pump. Struggling to stay upright, Ken kept a watchful eye on the beast's movements, which were now hidden from view as it disappeared under the truck. It was then that Ken realized that the beast was no longer drawn to the light of the gas station sign. It was searching for him. With the storm raging around him, Ken quietly made his way to the engine of the truck, grateful for the cover of the rain that muffled his footsteps. Summoning all his strength, Ken bolted towards the entrance of the gas station, a haunting wail piercing through the storm as the metal of the truck clashed against the predator's limbs. Ken could hear the beast gaining on him, its single-minded pursuit fixated on capturing him. Moving with agility and precision, Ken dove over 3 levels of barbed wire that he had carefully fashioned at each exit, his muscles protesting as he hit the ground with a painful thud. The beast collided with the wires, letting out a frustrated growl as it struggled to break free from the ensnaring coils. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Ken quickly retrieved a shovel that he had placed behind the counter inside the gas station. Charging towards the confused beast, he angled the shovel in such a way that each strike inflicted maximum pain. The first blow landed on the nape of the beast, but it seemed unfazed, focused solely on ridding itself of the barbed wire embedded in its flesh. Undeterred, Ken delivered 3 more strikes, the second and third blows breaking the skin of the animal. The creature writhed in agony, but Ken did not stop until the beast lay still and motionless, defeated by his fierce determination and unrelenting spirit. As Ken pressed on, he realized that the damage he had inflicted upon the beast was insufficient to maim it. Despite this realization, he continued his attack with relentless determination, his thoughts racing as he imagined his son Richie's fear when faced with this monstrous predator. Ken envisioned the terror that must have been welling up inside his son, only to be disregarded by the violence of the uncaring beast. The pain that Richie must have endured as the creature tore flesh from his body with its dozens of teeth. Such imagery only fueled Ken's rage as he drove deeper into the beast's hide, until it finally turned its attention to him, knocking him onto his back with a single swipe of its claw. The beast made an attempt to approach Ken, but was halted by the remaining wires entangled in its hind legs. Ken seized the opportunity and plunged his shovel into the creature's girthy neck. Without wasting any time, he rose to his knees and headed towards the back exit of the station. The beast struggled to keep up, but surprised Ken with its speed. Ken leaped over the barbed wires at the doorframe, landing on the same shoulder that had caused him great pain earlier as the beast failed to learn and entangled itself once again. The creature retreated inside, letting out an anguished cry, while Ken reveled in its frustration and agony. Ken rose slowly to his feet, clutching his left shoulder in pain, knowing that he had no time to recover. He searched his pockets for a Zippo, a gift from his son, and after a few attempts, the flame sparked. Without hesitation, he dropped it onto the gasoline that surrounded the building. The initial force of the igniting gasoline caused Ken to take a few cautious steps backward, and he felt the heat of the powerful flames replace the cold rain on his skin. The brightness of the fire contrasted sharply with the darkness of the storm. Although he covered his eyes at first, Ken forced himself to watch as the beast met its final moments. At first, the creature was drawn to the flickering light of the flames. Its curiosity soon turned to agony as the fiery lashes scorched its mouth. In a frenzy, the beast charged through the station, crashing into shelves and knocking over an empty dumpster. It burst through an open window, and its flaming body illuminated the wires around it. Ken hesitated, wondering if the creature would perish in the blaze, but he knew that he had to take action to ensure it didn't cause further harm. He thought of Richie, and realized he had to put an end to the beast himself. Ken was well prepared for this moment, and he reached for the crowbar and baseball bat he had stashed in the dumpster. Braving the searing heat, he approached the beast and began to strike it repeatedly with the crowbar, feeling the crunch of bone and flesh beneath it. He hacked away at the predator until it was completely dismembered. As the rain drenched the smoldering carcass, Ken looked upon it, recognizing the last remains of his beloved son among the charred flesh. His heart ached with grief, knowing that he would never be able to give his son a proper burial. He mourned alone, seeking solace in the isolation of his thoughts. Despite the weight of his loss, Ken knew he had to keep moving forward. He hoped to find an evacuation site with Olivia, where they could start a new life and make every decision in honor of Richie.